Okay, we are recording. Just hide my controls. Okay, good morning. My name is Jeff White, and I will be your trainer for today. Now, this is the FlexMOS 101 class. So basically, we're going to be talking about the most basic things that you need to know when you're using FlexMOS. So how this class is going to work, it's going to be 3 hours. The first 50 minutes or so, we're going to cover the dashboard. The second hour, we're going to be covering the quick launch bar and some basic searching. And then the third hour, we're going to be doing an actual search and a subscription, and we'll walk through that process. So the third hour will be focused on if you have an actual client and you need to work within FlexMOS. Now, everyone is muted on this call, but there is a chat box in the Zoom panel. So if you type in a question there, I will be checking that frequently, and then I will answer you verbally on the call. So if you do have any questions, again, please type them into the chat panel. So we're going to go for 50 minutes, then we're going to take a 10-minute break. I find after 45, 50 minutes, you start to lose people. So I want to make sure everyone gets up, gets some coffee, pets their dog, whatever it is you need to do. Okay, so when you first log into FlexMOS, the first thing that you see is the dashboard. And that's why I like to first begin with the dashboard, is because this dashboard, what you see here, this is very customizable. And a lot of the things in FlexMOS, which we're going to be doing in this class, the 201 class, which will be next week, be very heavy on the customizations. And then the 301 class, that will be CMA, statistics, so much more advanced. So this is just the basic class, focusing again, dashboard and searching. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to point out in the upper left corner, you're going to see this, what says home. You may see something else, but this home should be your default. And whenever you see this down arrow or chevron, you're going to see it throughout the system. It tells you that it's a drop down, so you're going to get more options. So if I click on home, I see a MLS and I also see home. So if I were to go to MLS, I might see different gadgets that are available. And so I'm going to go back to home. So what we're going to do is we're going to customize these gadgets based on how we want to use the system or what we want to see. This dashboard is basically an intro into FlexMOS. So what I mean by that, these gadgets are basically shortcuts to the functionality. And the easiest way to see that is if I hover over contacts, I see that it says click here to go to contacts. So this is a gadget, but if I click on contacts, it'll actually bring me into contact management. And if I want to return back to my dashboard, I'm going to click on FlexMOS. So pay very close to this explanation. FlexMOS is a very powerful software, and there's a lot of things you may not be aware you can do. So what you really want to do is pay attention to your mouse behavior. Your default mouse is going to be this arrow. But if you hover over something, there's a couple things that may happen. One, the arrow may change to a different icon now. So we see here the index finger. The index finger tells me I can click on this. But more importantly, I see some hover text that says return to dashboard. So I will refer to this throughout the 3 classes. Watch your hover text, watch your mouse behavior, because again, there's functionality you may miss because it's just, there's only so much that the programmers can do right in front of your face. So a lot of times there's functionality hidden behind a click. So I'm going to click on FlexMOS. This will return me back to my default dashboard. And we'll see the same thing when we go to contacts. Now, when I see the 4 directionals, this tells me that I can drag to rearrange the gadgets. So I can move these gadgets around however I want to see them in the system. But if I go over to contacts, same thing again. I see that index finger, and it says click here to go to contacts. Now, our big focus in the first hour is the dashboard, and especially how to customize these individual gadgets. So what I'm going to do is to customize the gadget, I'm going to go to the upper right corner of each gadget, and I'm looking for these 3 dots. And the 3 dots give me that index finger, so I know that I can click on it. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots. And what I'm going to be looking for these gadgets is the settings option. It's going to allow me to customize the information that is within these individual gadgets. So for the contacts one, I'm going to click on the 3 dots and I'm looking for settings. Now, when I do this, I'm going to see a couple different things. I'm going to see show columns and default group. Now, you can have your groups, you can create groups in your contact management based on what kind of customers you have. We will talk about that in the 201 class next week. But really what I want you to focus on is where it says show columns, you're going to see a list of things. Now, whenever you see a list like this and it's blue, that means it's been selected. So if I want to remove or if I want to add options, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control or the command button if I have a Mac, and I'm going to click on something or unclick it. So I can decide what things I want to see in this context gadget. Now the contact management is going to show you everything, but this is a smaller thing. It's just a gadget. So I'm going to have it display the things that I want to see on my dashboard. So I did last active, favorite, listings, and listing match or last match. So I'm going to click on save. And now my contacts gadget has been updated. It shows me when my contacts were last active, any listings that have been sent out in like subscriptions, and the last time there was a match. So these are months ago for when I taught other classes in the North Carolina regional. But you could always, sort by clicking on the top. And the reason you can do that is, again, watch that mouse behavior. I see the arrow. Once it gives me that index finger, I know I can do something with it. And this is a shortcut to the functionality. So if I wanted to pull up Wedge Antilles contact record, see how it says edit this contact? Just click on it. And it will pull up his contact record. And in the 201 class next week, we will be going through these individual tabs, talking about what that is, how you use these things. Now remember, if I want to return back to my default dashboard, I'm just going to click on FlexMLS. So that's how we customize the contacts gadget. Now the next one is the new search gadget. So same thing, I'm going to go to the three dots. Now right now it just shows me a residential search. I'm going to go to the three dots. I'm looking for that settings so we can customize this. Now I want you to be aware that once you've customized this, you only have to do it once. People think, oh, every time I log in, I have to make these changes. No, it saves the changes. So we're just customizing this right now. And that's why I like to show this as the first thing, because it's something very easy you can do in FlexMLS. And so when you're done with this class, literally just make notes, gadgets, settings, customize. And when you're done with this class, or if you're following along, you can do it while I'm teaching the class. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to settings. And then you'll notice, again, there's a list of things, and one thing is blue. That is the selected option. So if I hold down Control, or if I have a Mac command, I can select multiple things. So I'm going to do land, res, long-term rental, and I'm going to do boat slips. And we'll do multi-property. And if I unclick something, it removes it. And then I'm going to click on save. And now it's given me all of these options. So if I want to start, say, a residential search, I'm going to click on residential. And it will start a residential search for me. So we see all the fields that I can use. Now, let me talk about this. This is called a quick search template. The fields that you see here are provided you by default. In the second class next week, what we're going to do is we're going to remove some of the fields that we don't use. We're going to add fields that we do use, and then create our own templates and call it, like, say, my residential or whatever it is we want to call it. So these aren't the only things that you are able to use. You can customize that. Again, so a lot of this we're going to be discussing in the next couple classes is going to be customization of the system. So and it's especially important because North Carolina Regional, we see more than 5,000 listings. This is spread all across North Carolina. You may only work in one board or one area. So we're going to focus on customizing the listings so they just come back for your area. So I'm going to go back again, FlexMLS, return back to my dashboard. And if I had a street address or an MLS number, I could do that as well. In the second hour, though, we will be focusing heavily on this quick launch bar to type in things like addresses, MLS numbers, because it is a really efficient way to use the system. Now, the hot sheet gadget, this is one of my favorite things. And the reason being is we can customize this for a specific area. Now, before I do that, I do want to point out, so we have 24 hours. Remember, we see that down arrow chevron, it means that there's a drop down. I have the 24 hours, I have the 48 hours, I have the 72 hours. Now, the problem with this is, again, because this is North Carolina regional, in the last 48 hours, I see 298 new listings. That's way too much information for me to take in, because I might only work Jacksonville or say Emerald Isle or, Southport or something. So what I can do is I can go up to the three dots, and remember, for each of these gadgets, we're looking to customize it, and you just have to do it once. We're going to go to the settings option right here. So this hot sheet gadget will allow me to do county, city, zip code, and even subdivision. And then there's like a location type, which would be island or mainland. So it really does let you get granular here. So I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm going to do the city of Jacksonville. But this could be, Rocky Mount. This could be Brunswick County. You could do whatever you want to do if there's people from other boards on this call. So we do the city of Jacksonville, and I'm going to click on save. So what this does now is the hot sheet is much more manageable. So if I go back to the 24 hours, I see that, okay, there's actually still quite a few listings. But if you wanted to narrow it down to a specific subdivision, that is a really easy thing to do as well. So let's do that. I want to make sure I have a subdivision that is in the area. Just one second. Okay, so stateside. So what I could do instead is we're going to go back here, go to settings. Whoever's talking, please mute.
The thing just disappeared.
Please mute.
Chat, share screen, record.
Hit there's a line through the start video. Hit that also.
Please mute yourself if you're. Is anyone having problems seeing me? Okay. Anyway, so instead of city, we're going to do stateside for the subdivisions, just to show you, you can get as granular as you'd like. There we go. So if I just want to do the subdivision of stateside, click on save. There we go. So just one new listing in the last 24 hours. Maybe you were out of town, so you want to see everything that's been happening in the last week. So then we see some pendings, see some price changes. So this allows you to do that. Now, there's a couple of things you can do here. You can just do the one subdivision, or if you want, we're going to go back to settings. I could do multiple subdivisions. I could type in another subdivision. I could do multiple zip codes, whatever it is that I want to do. Okay, so I showed you how to customize a hot sheet gadget, which is really cool, but let's make it even better. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually add another hot sheet gadget, and we're going to customize it for a different area. So maybe I want to do all of Jacksonville, but I want to keep the subdivision of stateside separate. So it's very, very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to customize, and then we're going to go to add gadgets. And you see that down arrow or chevron, so we know that it means there are more options. So I'm going to go to add gadgets. And I can add as many gadgets as I'd like. It's not a problem. So if I start going down through the left side and see if I can find the hot sheet gadget, where is it? Oh, it's under daily. So I'm going to add a hot sheet, and it's fine that it says hot sheet is already on the dashboard. That's not a problem. We're going to add another one. So we're going to add another hot sheet gadget, and then I'm going to return back to my dashboard. And whenever you add a new gadget, it's going to be down at the bottom. So if I just scroll down the bottom, and this is where those 4 directionals, I talked about that not too long ago. Drag to rearrange, hold my left mouse button, and I'm just going to drag it up. I'm going to put it to the right of this one. So this is hot sheet gadget has been customized for just the subdivision of stateside. But now I want the hot sheet gadget that's for Jacksonville. So we're going to go to 3 dots. Go to settings. Jacksonville, and click on save. There we go. So now this hot sheet is just for the city of Jacksonville for 24 hours or for whatever length I want. So just to sum up, what we're doing here is the hot sheet gadget right now is the default, shows you everything in North Carolina Regional. And that is a very big area geographically. I know because I've done a bunch of training there throughout the years. And so that may not interest you. You may not be interested in listings in Tarboro or Rocky Mount or Brunswick County. So if you want to narrow it down to just a specific subdivision or city, multiple subdivisions or multiple cities in the same gadget is fine as well. But I find a lot of people like to break out their gadgets and just do specific, like one specific thing. And if you like, say you want to pull up the new listings in Jacksonville in the last 24 hours, just click on new listing. And then you see the new listings for Jacksonville. And maybe I want to switch to the normal view so I can see them all with photos. But up here it says new listings. Remember, your down arrow or chevron. There's the drop down and we see the other options that we have available. So I'm going to click on FlexMLS to return back to my default dashboard. So we've added 2 hot sheet gadgets. And like I said before, you can continue to add more if you'd like. It's not a problem. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my listings. My listings. So the My Listings gadget, you'll notice I have a bunch of zeros here because this is a test account, but you would probably see some numbers here. Now this gadget is just like the others. We can customize this one. So I'm going to go to the 3 dots right here. And I'm looking for settings. So it says days to expire, 7 days, and days sold 365. Yours may say like 14 days expire or days sold 30. I don't remember what your default is. So I like to keep it at 365 and days expire. Maybe I want to set it up for 14 or let's do 10. And I'm going to click on save. And so you'll actually, what's cool is this is listings to expire. It's going to show you any of your listings that are going to expire in the next, 7 days or 10 days, 14 days, whatever you want. But there is another option in FlexMLS I want to point out really quickly. It's cool that the dashboard shows you this, but you're only going to know your listings are going to expire if you're logging into the system regularly. If you're not logging in regularly, you may not know your listing is going to expire. So another thing that you can do that I find is more helpful is we're going to go up to this box right here where it says enter an address, city, zip. This is the quick launch bar, and we'll be talking about this more in the second hour. I'm going to type in the word general. And when I type in the word general, there's a menu item called general preferences. So in general preferences, I'm going to click on this right here. And there's a lot of options. I'm not really going to worry about most of them. I do just want to point out that if I go down towards the bottom, see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 up from the bottom, I have a thing that says expiring listing notification. Now yours is going to be unchecked by default, and then this box will be grayed out. So what we're going to do is we're going to check this box, and we can set it for 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. I'm going to set this
to show I have what.
Okay, whoever's talking, please mute yourself. And so when I switch it to 14 days, you'll notice the text actually changes. It says send email notification of expiring listings 14 days before the expiration date and once per day for each of the 7 days preceding the expiration date. So you can actually send it 2 weeks beforehand, and then the week beforehand, it'll actually fire off an email each individual day. So I really do like that option. So we're going to click on save. And just to show you what we did again, what we were doing is we were looking at the My Listings gadget, which does have an option to show you when your listings are going to expire, which is cool. But if you're not regularly logging into the system and you haven't changed that on your dashboard, you may not notice it. So there is an option when we type in the word general up in the quick launch bar. We're looking for general preferences. I click on general preferences. And if I scroll down 6 from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm looking for expiring listing notification. This is unchecked by default. So what I want to do is I want to check it, decide how many days I want, and then I'm going to click on save. And then so what this will do is FlexMLS checks this every day, checks your listings against whatever rule has been set, and then it will email you letting you know your listing is going to expire. So that's a really cool option. Okay, so let's continue. Hold on, we have a question. Gina asks, this is only for your listings, not all expired listings. Correct. You only are notified about, you don't see the expiration dates of other people's listings. If you wanted to see what listings have just expired, though, you could check the hot sheet. So the hot sheet does have an option, I believe, for expired listings. Let me just verify. Yep, right here. So any listings that have expired. So this is the one listing that is expired in the last day in Jacksonville. Now the Save Searches gadget. This one we can get a little bit fancy, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to click on the three dots, and by now everyone should be thinking he's going for the settings right here. Janice says she can't hear me. No one else is having issues, so it's going to be something on your computer. But if you're having issues, this is being recorded. So you may just want to log or like restart your computer and log back in. Okay, so the Save Searches, I'm going to go to the three dots, and again, we're looking for settings. So for this one, personally, what I like to do is you can change the number of searches up to 100, but if you have a lot of saved searches, meaning you have a lot of people that you're working with, I personally like to switch to only favorites. I'm going to show you why. Is when I switch to only favorites, it's going to show me just my favorite searches. And the reason I do that is because this dashboard is like a shortcut to functionality. If I want to go to save searches, this will show me all of my saved searches. So I can do it this way instead, see all of my saved searches. But I like to set this up as my favorites because this is, again, short functionality. So these may be things that I pull up really quickly. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually save a search as a favorite right now. And the reason I like to do this in the intro class is because, like I talked about before, North Carolina Regional is very large geographically, and you may not work, and you probably don't work the entire area. So when you do a search, and I'll do that again, we're going to do a residential search. The first thing that we notice is the number of listings that come back. We have 5,405. That's a lot of listings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and watch this very carefully. A lot of people don't get what I'm doing. So we're going to go down, and there's actually an add a field to the search box. We see listing selling member. We see listing selling office. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click inside this box. And when you do that, you have all the possible fields you can search on available. But if you start typing in something, it's going to narrow it down. And I'm going to start typing in association. And I'm looking for a listing selling association. So I'm going to click on that. And when I click on this, it adds it over to the left side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Jacksonville Board of Realtors. So 5405 now drops down to 708. This is a much more manageable option. And so now that I've done this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to save. And I'm going to save this search. So. And once I've done that, I'm going to get a pop-up. And this is the thing that I want you to pay close attention to. I'm going to mark this as a favorite. On the dashboard screen, I had the option to show all my saved searches or just my favorites. I like to switch it to just favorites so I can mark listings and favorites and make it kind of a shortcut. So I'm going to type in JBOR residential. I have it marked as a favorite, and I'm going to click on save. Now I'm not going to add a contact or subscription. This isn't a search specifically for a person. This is, for me as the realtor. So I'm going to click on save. And when I click on FlexMLS and I go down to my saved searches gadget, remember we set it up as just favorites. What do I see? I see my favorite searches, and there is JBOR residential. So when I click on this, just Jacksonville listings, the Board of Realtors is going to be coming back. So just 708 results. I can go to the edit search. And so we see that's already selected, and then I can put in my other search parameters. Now, any favorite search you create can be based on whatever you want. And so what I could do is I could just do, say, like the city of Emerald Isle. So we'll do that now. Let me just clear this out. So we're going to do what we did before. We're going to start a residential search, and we're going to notice that it has a lot of results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for marketing city or city. I'm going to type in Emerald Isle. Really nice place. I was there, I believe, in August. So this is just down to 72 results. So I want to save this search as a favorite. So it's like a shortcut. I don't have to, if I do a lot of business there, I don't want to have to type in Emerald Isle every time. So I'm going to go up to save. I'm going to save the search. And we'll just call this Emerald Isle Residential. So I know exactly what it is. Now, the key thing here is to mark it as a favorite and click on save. So now when I return back to my default dashboard, I scroll down, I see all of my favorite searches. And we did that again by going up to the three dots. Remember what we've been doing for the last half an hour or so is we've been focusing on customizing these individual gadgets based on how we want to use the system. FlexMLS really is a shortcut for flexible MLS. FlexMLS allows you to customize a lot of different things in the system based on what you're looking for. So we're going to go to settings. And what we did is we switched it to the only favorites, because if I have hundreds and hundreds of searches, I don't necessarily need to see them on my dashboard, because if I want to pull up any saved searches, like see all of them, I can go to the saved searches here. And again, read your hover text and look at your mouse behavior. We have an index finger, and we have something that says click here to go to save searches. And this will bring me to all of my saved searches. So I click on that, see all of them. I see my draft, my favorites, and there's actually more than 3 drafts, or maybe just for this one, there's 3, but usually it'll actually can show you like 10 or 15. Okay. Now let's continue. So the display listings gadget, I go to the 3 dots, I look for settings. Now I find that most people will look at their listings here. And then the search filter, they'll actually show their office listings. But you'll also notice any search that you have, you can use this for the display listings gadget. But I just like to keep my office listings here and click save. Or some people find they don't even use this gadget, and they'll click on this and they'll actually remove it. So it's just personal preference how you want to use the system. So you can remove any gadget that you have. Hold on, we have a question. Okay, Valerie asked, how do we remove a search once we've saved it as a favorite? Any search that you want to remove, doesn't matter if it's a favorite, but if you go to your saved searches, and so you look for the 3 dots. If I want to remove this one for Wedge Antilles, 3 dots, and click on delete. And so I'll do that. And so delete that. Or if you were in, now if you want to remove it from your favorites, very simple. You can just click on, okay, someone is, Janice, could you please mute yourself? Oh, okay, or thank you. Otherwise, if you want to remove something from your favorites, it's very simple. Just click on the star and it will remove it from your favorites, but it will still be in your all section. Okay, so we did some basic customization here. Now, what I want to point out is, so this is your home dashboard, and what we've done is we've gone through the 3 dots. Remember, everyone should remember this now. We're going to the settings to customize these individual gadgets based on how we want to use the system. But there are other things you can do on the dashboard. Now, the next one I want to point out is changing the order of the gadgets. Now, we showed you that, okay, we see just the regular arrow. When it switches to the 4 directionals, it'll allow you to drag and drop. So you're going to hold down your left mouse button and you can bring it up. So if I want to have my save searches up at the top, I can do that. So that's one thing that I can customize. Now, other things that I can do to customize is if I go up to the customize button right here, and we see that again, down arrow or chevron, so we know that there are more options, and you even get some help text up there. What I can do is I can do change layout. So if I want to change the layout, what this means is right now it's a 50-50, which we see right here. But I could change it so it's like a 66-33 or 33-33-33%. And so if I want to click on this and change it to the 3 columns, what it's going to do is it's actually going to narrow them down. And it can just come down to personal preference. The one thing I don't like about the really narrow is if, like, for a hot sheet, you selected 2 or 3 things, it won't have enough space to show the entire thing. So if you hover over it, the text will tell you it, but on the screen, it might actually show you. So if you wanted to change it to 3-3-3, and then again, hold my left mouse button down, and then just make sure I'm using that space efficiently. So I have it 3 across. This is for someone who really wants to see a lot of gadgets on their screen. So again, we go up to customize, change layout right here. And I can decide whatever layout that I'd like. I personally am a big fan of the 50-50, just especially if you have a smaller laptop, or like say you're looking at this on your iPad, it's going to be a smaller screen. And you can add as many gadgets as you like, just keep scrolling down. But I find what people will do is they'll kind of, group their gadgets based on themes, because what we're going to do next is we're going to go up to customize. And instead of adding a gadget, we're going to actually add an entire new dashboard. And just want to point out before we do that, if you want to see what dashboards you already have, we did this at the beginning of the class, go up to the home button. We see MLS and home, but I can add more. And so I'm going to go to customize. And then I'm going to go to add dashboards. So when I go to add dashboard, there's 2 that I want to point out that are really popular. One is the blank. So you can actually, and I'm going to call this one My Hot Sheets. Let's say that you really want to keep track of hot sheets for like 5 or 6 different cities or 5 or 6 different subdivisions, and you want to break them down into those individual hot sheet gadgets. It's really simple. So I have a blank one. And so when I click on create dashboard, what it does is it now gives me an option to decide what gadgets I want to add myself. So there's nothing currently on the dashboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on it once, click on it again, and click on it a 3rd time. So I'm just going to add 3, but you could have, again, 6, 10, how many ever you'd like. And I'm going to return back to my dashboard. And so now we see 3, and let me move this over. We see 3 gadgets, and right now, these are going to be everything in the board. So we're going to go to settings. Oh, excuse me. I added my listings, not my hot sheets. So let me remove these really quickly. I got a little too excited. Just show you that you can remove gadgets pretty easily. So we'll do that one more time. So this is what you'd see. Click here to add gadgets. Let's go to the daily section, looking for hot sheet. So I'm going to click once, click again, and then click a 3rd time. So again, I've added 3, but you could add as many as you'd like. I'm going to return back to the dashboard. And so I'll move this over. Now this makes more sense. So we see this 147 new listings because it's showing everything in North Carolina Regional. Well, I want to customize this. So we have 3 different hot sheet gadgets for 3 different areas. So I'm going to go to the 3 dots, go to settings. So let's do Emerald Isle for 1. Let's do Jacksonville. So again, I'm looking for that settings. It's the city of Jacksonville. And then for the last one, I'm going to do Southport. So now I have 3 custom gadgets with 3 different cities or zip codes or subdivisions, whatever you want to do. So it breaks them down. So I'm just not looking at a lot of numbers that can overwhelm me. So if I want to see all the new listings in Southport, really simple. Just click on this. There you go. And if I go here, I see all the other options that I can click on. Remember, I'm going to return back to my default dashboard. See, watch the hover text. It says default dashboard. So people will get confused like, well, wait, what happened to my hot sheet gadgets dashboard? It's just right here. There's another my hot sheets because this is my default. And as see if it's your default, whenever you click on FlexMOS, it returns you to your default. If you want to change it, a different one to be your default, it's very simple. Go to a different dashboard, like my hot sheets. And then there's going to be an option right here that says customize, make default. If you want to change a different dashboard to be your default, but I like the home one as my default. I just do want to summarize, you know, these are taking up a lot of space. So I might want to go to customize, change layout. We did that a few minutes ago. And so for the hot sheet ones, I'm going to switch it to just the third columns. And then now, okay, left mouse button when we see the 4 directionals. We're going to move it over here. So now we have the 3 hot sheet gadgets side by side. But again, I can add as many 6, 10, whatever I want to do. Now, the final customization we're going to do for the dashboard is really what is my favorite dashboard, and that is the stats dashboard. So we're going to go up to customize, and we're going to add a new dashboard. Now, before I do that, I want to point out again, if you need to find another dashboard, they're always going to be available here. So if I need to pull up the MLS one, or if I want to pull up the home one, I can do that. Otherwise, we're going to go to customize. I'm going to add a new dashboard, and we're going to be looking for the stats one. So let me just scroll down a little bit. And there's one called market stats. Now, it says a set of statistical gadgets, and you have absorption rate, prices, inventory, sale to original list price ratio, sold days on market, and volume. And so when I click on add dashboard, it's going to add all of these gadgets. Now, this is going to be similar to what you see with the hot sheet gadget. Now, this is interesting, but right now, this is showing me for everything in North Carolina regional. Now, we do see that absorption rate is there. So inventory is really starting to get low. It's under 2 months. And this is basically what I'm seeing really everywhere in the US right now. And you can see the same thing here. So everything is dropping, but prices are going up. So this is everything for North Carolina regional. But let's say you just work Emerald Isle, or you just work Jacksonville, or Southport, or Rocky Mount. So same thing that we're doing before. So right now, everyone should automatically know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go up to those 3 dots, and I'm looking for settings right here, because this is everything in North Carolina regional, which is interesting. But your individual market might be very different than a city that's a couple hours away. So I'm going to click inside this location box. Now pay close attention to this explanation. A lot of people get confused here because they'll click inside this box and they'll see some options and they'll think that these are the only options. No, these are things that have just been run recently. So if I were to type in Jacksonville, I see we have a subdivision, we have a city, and a street address. So whenever you type in something, don't just click on the first thing, because it might be an actual subdivision, whereas you want a city. So it says double click or enter. So I'm going to double click Jacksonville, and I'm going to click on save. So this is the absorption rate for the city of Jacksonville. So see, this is why I like to get more granular. I like to go with the city or the subdivision level, because look at your absorption rate, actually less than a month. Whereas for it's almost 2 months for all of North Carolina regional. And if you were to do a like specific subdivision, you might see like, half a month, so like something crazy. So we're going to do the absorption rate for the city of Jacksonville. And so I see inventory, sold days on market, prices, sale to original list price ratio, and volume. Now, this is all interesting. But again, I want to get more granular. So what I'm going to do is I want another absorption rate gadget. And this time I'm going to do Southport. So how do we do that? Well, we've been doing this already. It's very simple. We're going to go up to customize. We're not going to add a new dashboard because we have the dashboard that we want. We're going to add a gadget to this dashboard. So we're going to add another absorption rate gadget. So I'm going to go up to customize. I'm going to add a gadget right here. And on the left side are all the different options. I know it's under statistics. So I'm going to go to statistics. And it's the absorption rate. Now it says absorption rate is already on this dashboard, not a problem. Like I said before, you can have as many gadgets as you'd like. So we're going to add another absorption rate gadget. And then I'm just going to return back to the dashboard. Now we know, like we saw before, any new gadgets are going to be down at the bottom. So I'm just going to scroll down, wait till I get those 4 directionals, hold my left mouse button down, and then I'm just going to move this one up. So this is the absorption rate for everything in North Carolina region, where this is just Jacksonville. But I want to customize this one for just Southport. So I'm going to go to the 3 dots, settings, click inside location. Again, these are just suggestions. That doesn't mean these are the only options. And I could do a subdivision here. I mean, is whatever I want to do, I'm just going to keep it simple and type in Southport. And so okay, now one reason I wanted to do this actually worked out perfectly, is you'll notice I'm not finding what I want here because there's a bunch of different things. There are different, subdivisions that have Southport. So what you want to do is look for it where it says show all. And when you go to show all, then you see the city of Southport. So now I'm going to double click Southport and click on save. And so for Southport, it's definitely not as hot as it is in Jacksonville. And if you hover over this, you actually get the individual numbers for the month. And so we're going to add one more absorption rate gadget just so we can practice. We're going to go up to customize. I'm going to add another gadget. And see, where is it? It's in the statistics section. So we'll add another absorption rate gadget. But again, I could add any other gadgets I'd like. You can really customize this as much as you want. And it's going to be down at the bottom. So I'm just going to use my left mouse button, hold it down, move this up. So same thing we did before. We went to the 3 dots. We're going to settings. And I click inside this box. Now, before I continue, I do want to point out, you notice I have a section that says My Map Overlays, and then something I have called Hotspots. And we'll do a little bit in this class, and we'll cover it more in the second and the third class. But you can draw map shapes, and you can use map shapes for gadgets or stats reports. Now, what's really cool about map shapes or like map overlays is look what happens when I click on landfall. So I'm going to do landfall, and then I'm going to do St. James. It says, please remove one location. A maximum of 1 location may be selected. It only lets you do one thing here. Well, a map shape is one thing, but it can encompass multiple subdivisions, or it could be, a thing of like east of 17 or waterfront. Like it can be whatever it is that you draw on the map. And so you can use an actual map shape for these. So if you just do a lot of, waterfront properties, but it's across a couple of different cities, draw that map shape, and then you can use it here in these gadgets. So let's do Emerald Isle. I really like it there, so we'll do Emerald Isle. And so Emerald, look at that, just crazy. It was in a buyer's market at the beginning of last year, and then with COVID, it suddenly just dropped like crazy. So if you're looking at the aggregate, looking at everything in North Carolina regional, you may not get the granular level of data that you're really looking for. Okay, so we're going to spend a couple minutes summing up, and then we're going to take our 10-minute break. Okay, so what are we trying to accomplish in the first hour? Well, the first thing that you see when you log into FlexMLS is your dashboard. So we talked about that you have a home dashboard, which is likely your default, but you can switch to other dashboards. So what we did on the home dashboard is we decided to customize these individual gadgets based on how we use the system. So to do that, I go to the three dots and I'm looking for the settings. This will allow me to decide what kind of data is displayed inside a gadget. And whenever I see a list like this and something is blue, it means it's been selected. So if I hold down Control, or if I have a Mac command, I can select or unselect things and click on Save. So that's one thing we did. Now, another thing we did is we changed the order of the gadgets based on how we want them displayed on the screen. So if I watch my mouse, it's an arrow, which is your default. If it switches to the 4 directionals, you can hold your left mouse button down and you can move things around. And then we focused on doing custom hot sheet gadgets. But the key thing here is if you want more than one of something, like a hot sheet gadget so you can customize it, we're going to go up to Customize and we're going to click on Add Gadgets. So we can add more gadgets to a specific dashboard. We also went to Change Layout. And when I went to Change Layout, it allows me to decide how I want to show it on the screen. Some people really like the 50-50. Other people like the 3, especially if you have a larger screen like at your office. So you get to use that space more efficiently. But if you're working off a small laptop or an iPad, the 3 columns may not work as well. And then what we talked about is we talked about adding additional dashboards. So we went up to Customize. We went to Add Dashboard. And the 2 dashboards that I created is I did a blank one called My Hot Sheets, where I just added hot sheet gadgets for different parts of North Carolina Regional. And then the final thing that I did is I added the Market Stats dashboard, which has these 6 gadgets. And when we created that, we went into it right here, the Market Stats. I worked with the 6 gadgets, but I decided I wanted to customize the absorption rate for 3 different areas in North Carolina Regional, so I have more granular data. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute break and start up again at 11 o'clock. I'm going to mute myself and pet the dogs, and I will see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay. So the first hour we talked about customizing the dashboard. And so now the second hour, we're going to be focusing on the quick launch bar and the things that you can do with the quick launch bar. Now, I really like to focus on this in the beginner class because a lot of people don't realize there's so much functionality that is available here. And a lot of times when I teach, I'll be doing things from this box and people are like, wow, you're so fast with FlexMLS. And a lot of it's just because I know how to use the system, specifically doing things from the quick launch bar. So what we're going to do is we're going to do like 6 different things up here in the quick launch bar. And I'll do them nice and slow so you can take notes. So give me 1 second so I can just pull up my notes. Okay. So the quick launch bar is this right here. It says enter an address, city, zip, MLS number, or contact. And this doesn't encompass everything. So I'm going to do 6 different types of things here. You can take notes to it. And so I'm going to click inside this box. And when I do that, I see a couple of things. If I haven't typed in anything, I see some recent searches and I see some quick launch history. Now, these recent searches, you'll notice that a couple of them say draft search. So what's really cool about this is even if you're doing a search and you forget to save it, or say your computer crashes, something like that, you can find your draft searches up here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to type in an MLS number. So I'm going to do 100. And if you're taking notes at home, I'd recommend writing down these specific examples: 1002 39318. So 1002 002-39318. So I see there's a listing. It's the bold. Right here is the actual MLS number. It shows me that it's active and it shows the address. And you'll also notice that it says start a new search. So really what the quick launch does is when you type in some information in this box, it's going to scroll, it's going to go through the entire FlexMLS database for North Carolina Regional and try to guess what you're asking it. So when we're doing the stuff here, you may have to be a little more specific, but something like this, a number of this length, the only thing that it can really be is a listing, but it may think you're looking for houses that are more than $100 million. So it has like very broad parameters. It's trying to guess what you're asking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this right here to pull up that MLS number. So when I do that, I see that it has pulled up that MLS number and it shows me the detail report. And if I wanted to say pull up the history right here for the property, see that hover text. I cannot emphasize the mouse behavior enough in these classes because you may miss a lot of things if you're not hovering over certain things. Okay, so we see it expired back in 2006, and then it's now active and it's been on the market for 104 days. And if I can click on these plus signs, I can drill down to all the changes or things that have happened to it. Okay, so I typed in an MLS number. Now, pay close attention to this explanation. A lot of people will ask, can I put multiple MLS numbers in the quick launch bar? So like I want to pull up 2 listings or 3 listings. You can't do that here, but I will show you that functionality towards the end of this hour. So the first thing that we did, I'm going to do it one more time, just to make sure that you have this in your notes. We want to pull up an MLS number. Let's say, for example, our client found a listing on another site and they want you to pull it up. I'm going to type in 100239318. And then I pull up this MLS number, this listing. Now, another explanation I'm going to give you now, I want you to pay close attention to. This quick launch bar is in your FlexMLS Pro app. So the app that you use as a realtor, this same functionality works here. So let's say you're at an open house or you're meeting with a client and they give you an MLS number, say, hey, can you pull up this listing? Just pull up your FlexMLS Pro app and you can type in that MLS number and then pull up the data for that listing. So you don't have to go back to your office to get information about something specific. Okay, the next one we're going to do is I'm going to type in an address. So I'm going to type in 5400, I think it's said Edisto Drive. Now you'll notice I haven't even finished typing it in and it's already found it for me. So I see that there's one pending with showings and there was one that was closed. So one thing that happens when you type in something like an address, the maximum number of results that'll come in this dropdown is going to be 5. That doesn't mean that it's only been listed 5 times. It may have been listed 10 or 15 times. It's just the output here that comes back is going to be a maximum of 5 things. So what I can do is I can click on this, or if I want to open this up into a new tab, I can do so. So watch what happens to my screen. I'm currently looking at a listing. If I click on new tab, I can open this up into a new tab. Well, I don't lose what I'm currently working on. So what's great about this is, let's say you're doing a CMA or you're adding a listing and you get a call and someone wants you to pull up a listing for them and send it to them. Just use your quick launch bar, type it in, and then open it up into a new tab. So we'll do that one more time. I start typing in an address and I open this up into a new tab. So I don't lose whatever I'm currently working on. You can have 5 or 10, tabs open at the same time. It is not a problem. Now, one thing I do want you to be aware of is when I type in an address here, like 5400 Edisto, this means it's actually been listed in the system. Now, oh, we got a question, 1 second. Thank you, Gina. It is a great tip. Now, if I type in 5401 Edisto, nothing comes back. It actually says subdivision of Edinburgh. Because again, it's searching the entire database and it's trying to guess what you're asking it. So it's trying to be helpful. Now, there's obviously this is not what we're looking for, but listen carefully. This does not mean there is not a house on 5401 Edisto. There could be one across the street. It just means that it's never been listed in the MLS. So when you type in an address here, it's something that has been listed at some point in the MLS. It could be like even say 10 years ago. I'm not sure how much data you brought over when you converted to Flex MLS, but there may be, years and years of data. So 5400, pull it up. And, if you have to be specific, you may have to type the entire, so street number, street name, and street suffix to find it. But Edisto is a pretty unique street name. So I find it literally just EDI, and it's already found those listings. And what's really cool about this, as I told you before, it will only come back with 5 results as a maximum. That doesn't mean it hasn't been listed more than 5 times. So what I like to do is I like to do an address search and then go to the history right here. And then I can see all the times it's been listed. So this one has only been listed twice, but some things you may see listed, multiple times. So if you really want to see that, you can do that right here. Okay, so just to sum up what we've been doing, first thing that we did was an MLS number 1002-39318. And obviously this could be an MLS number for anything in the North Carolina regional. It's not just for the Jacksonville board. Then we did an address 5400 Edisto, and it's already found it by typing in the EDI. Key thing here is it's only going to come back with results if it's been in the MLS. If it was a for sale by owner, you're not going to be able to see it in the MLS here using this functionality. Now, the third one that we're going to do is we're going to get really cool with radiuses. So what I mean by that is I'm going to type in 1 mile from, and it could be 1 mile from, 2 miles from, 3 miles from, however far out I want to go. And I'm going to type in 1 mile from, and then I'm going to use that same MLS number I used just a minute ago, 1002-39318. And you'll notice it says residential land in multifamily. So whenever you do start a new search, it's going to come back with 3 different quick search templates, but they're alphanumerical. So if you actually need to do a commercial search and you see, okay, I type in 1 mile from and an MLS number and it doesn't give me the commercial option, it's very simple. Just preface your text with commercial or rental or whatever it is, and then it'll give you that option. So again, when you type in parameters for like a search, it comes back alphanumeric with a 1, 2, 3. So one thing that we're going to do tomorrow, or not tomorrow, sorry, next week, when we're creating our own quick search templates, is I might name something 1.5 my residential, so it shows up in those first 3. But we're going to do a 1 mile from and then plug in an MLS number, and then I'm going to click on residential. Now write this in your notes. Radius, check the map. Again, radius, check the map. We're doing a radius search around this MLS number. I'm assuming it was mapped correctly when the listing was entered, but I don't actually know. So if you do a radius search around an MLS number, and then you fire off those results to your client, and they're asking you like, why are you showing me stuff in Tarboro? I wanted to see stuff in Southport. Because if you never check the map to verify that that listing was actually geolocated in the correct location, you're going to be sending them listings they're not interested in. So I'm going to do the 1 mile from, and then I'm going to check the map. Now there's 2 ways to do this. I can click on the map tab, or what I like to do is I just like to switch to the edit search tab because I have all my search parameters. And then I have the map. So I say, yep, that is a 1 mile radius around the MLS number. So the MLS number can be active, pending, closed. It does not matter as long as it has an MLS number. But we're always checking to make sure it is in the correct location. And if you needed to put in like number of bedrooms, like say 5, And Bass, we want 3. You can put in your other search parameters while you're doing a radius search. So it's a really quick way to start a search if you'd like to do it that way. So we'll just do this one more time. 1 mile from, 2 miles from, 3 miles from, whatever it is you want to do. Plug in an MLS number. You'll see alphanumerically the first 3 options, but if you needed to do, let's see, if I typed in rental, there we go, residential long-term rental, and do that. Okay, so that's the first one that we did. We did a radius around an MLS number. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a radius search around an address. Now, pay close attention to this explanation. Remember when I told you when we did just an address here, 5400 Edisto Drive, it has to be an address of a listing that's actually in the system. That is a requirement if we're just doing an address. But if we're doing a radius around an address, the radius around the address, that address can be anything that Google can find. Hold on, let me check the chat real quick. Okay, so Shanna Smith, can you do a 1 mile search from an area, for example, anyone wanting to be 1 mile from Camp Lejeune? Yes, you can. You can do a radius around a location. Now, the one thing though I would do there is Camp Lejeune is really, really large, I believe. So it may make more sense to actually draw a map shape, find the area like where that person's going to be. But yes, any location, as long as Google can find it, you're going to be able to do that. And I'll be showing that after we do the address radius. Excellent question. But like I said, I've done training across the US, and I know some of these military bases, they're absolutely massive. So it might make more sense for you to just find a fixed location on that military base and then like draw a point and then use the circle. The circle is basically a radius, and then draw that out. Because the radius searching for locations like Walmart, that's pretty small fixed location, or a Trader Joe's or something. But Camp Lejeune, I assume, is just massive. Okay, so to get back to what we were talking about, we're doing a radius search around an address. And like I said before, as long as Google can find the address, and you see right here, this is Google's functionality. This isn't FlexMLS. The data is getting sent to Google to get mapped. So I'm going to type in 1 mile from 5400 Edisto Drive. Now this, I actually am going to type in the street number, the street name, and the street suffix. Because if I just do 5400 Eddy, it's not going to know what that is. So we're going to do 1 mile from, click on residential. And especially when you're doing an address or a location, you want to check that map search. You want to make sure that it's been mapped in the correct location. So I'm going to go to edit search. And there we go. So we have a 1 mile radius around 5400 Edisto Drive. But I'm going to point out something real quickly. I'm going to put in Edisto Drive and just, okay, so this is in Wilmington. So I know this is correct. But so let me just actually write that down really quickly. I want to point out something that you may need to do. Okay, so if we're checking the map and you find that the map is in the middle of Kansas, sometimes we have Google just can't quite figure out what you're asking. Maybe it's a newer subdivision or something. So what you would do is you would type in 1 mile from 5400 Edisto Drive, and then I'm going to type in Wilmington, NC 28403. I think that was the correct zip code. So if it's not finding it, put in the entire address, but you'll notice I'm not using commas. We're going to be using commas later when we're actually doing some search parameters. But again, if it doesn't figure out what you're asking it, just do the street number, the street name, and then the street suffix, put in the city, state abbreviation, and then the zip code. Then it knows exactly where it is. Okay, so we'll do this again. 1 mile from, or actually this time let's try 2 miles from. And if you're taking notes at home, I'd recommend writing down these exact examples just so after class, when you come back to your notes, you know exactly what it is that I was doing. But this class is being recorded, thankfully. So we're gonna go to residential. And so we did 2 miles, so our results are higher. But again, I'm always going to check that map to make sure that it has been in the correct location, because this data is getting sent to Google, as we see right down here. Ideally, I find Google's correct 95% of the time, but sometimes you do something and it cannot quite figure it out. And I've had that happen in class where I do something and then I check the map and it's in the middle of Kansas. So then I'll do the street, or I'll do the city name, the state abbreviation, and then the zip code. And like we did before, we put in a radius search around a location. So we're doing an address here. Let's imagine that we're going to do a CMA. Now, like I said earlier, this will work around any address that Google can find. So let's say you have a client who wants you to list their property. It's never been in the MLS. So it was in the family for 50 years. It's never been in the MLS. And they want you to do a CMA for that property. Well, you can do a radius search around any address that Google can find, and then you can put in your other search parameters like number of bedrooms, number of baths, if it has a garage with 2 spaces, whatever it is you want to do to start your CMA. Okay, got a question, 1 second. Jane says it looks like the radius is not actually centered on the address. That's why you're going to check the map. It may be something that listing is not correctly done by Google, so you could always report a map error. But this isn't on FlexMLS. It's sending the data to Google. When it's not centered on the address, I find that's pretty rare. We're basically talking about the 5% of the time where it doesn't work. But if you zoom in, I find almost all the time it does work. So, Jane, excellent point. Okay, so we did a MLS number, we did an address, and then the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to do location. So earlier someone talked about Camp Lejeune. Now Camp Lejeune is going to be a very large geographic area, so I'm going to see how this works. I've never actually done it on this specific example. I believe I spelled that correctly. So we're going to go residential. Okay, did I spell that wrong? Okay, I did spell that wrong. Thank you. Okay, I clearly don't speak French. Okay, it did not find anything. And the reason being is this is what I talked about before. Camp Lejeune is so incredibly large that it actually doesn't find any houses. It would just be the actual camp. So what I would want to do is I might want to go 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles out. And this might, again, this might be in the incorrect location. So what it might make more sense is your circle is a radius. So if we zoom in, your circle, if I click on that and I click on any point on the map, I watch the numbers, it'll actually get larger. So for something like Camp Lejeune, it may make more sense just to find a point on the map, click on it, and then go out a couple of miles. And even there, we don't find any results. So I'm not sure how large Camp Lejeune is, but it may make sense where you get more specific on that. But the examples I like to do is I'm going to zoom in to Jacksonville, and I'm actually going to find a location of something that we're going to use. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to use Georgetown Park. Now watch what I do. This is an actual specific location. I'm going to type in 1 mile from Georgetown Park. Now, I'm not just going to finish it with Georgetown Park. The reason being, I guarantee that there are dozens of Georgetown Parks across the country. And this isn't enough information for Google. Now, if I were to do something like Brunswick County Courthouse, Brunswick County is probably states that have Brunswick County. When I worked in Arizona, they had a Yavapai County. That was unique. So Yavapai County Courthouse was unique. There was no other ones named that in the country, so it worked. So if you're going to use a location, what you want to do is put in the name of the location and then put in the city and the state abbreviation. The reason I'm not doing just Jacksonville, because we know that there's Jacksonville, Florida, and there could be a Georgetown Park there as well. So I always, whenever I'm doing a location, I get specific enough that I put in the name of what it is, I put in the city and then the state abbreviation. Now, why would you use this? Well, our example earlier, Camp Lejeune, works well in theory, but because it's so large, it just was not working. But let's say you have a client who is going to be a new principal at the high school. And so what you would do is you type in the name of the high school, the city and the state abbreviation, because again, our high school names are used the same over and over across the country. So it's not likely that it's going to be a unique name. Or let's say it's a doctor who's going to be a new resident at the hospital. So you put in the name of the hospital, the city, and then the state, and you can get a 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile radius, whatever it is that you want to do around a location. So we're going to do a residential 1 mile around Georgetown Park. And I always check the map. Make sure you're writing that down. So we see 4 results, and I see Jacksonville, so it's probably correct. But I want to go to edit search just to make sure. Yep. That is a 1 mile radius around Georgetown Park. So that is a specific location. Now pay close attention to this. If you were to type in Walmart, Jacksonville, North Carolina, and there's 2 Walmarts in Jacksonville proper, the actual city, it's not going to work. So it's going to be, you can get as specific as long as there's one thing in that city. Otherwise, you'd want to use the address instead. Like, if you were to do Starbucks, if there's, 5 Starbucks in Jacksonville, you're sending this information to Google, it doesn't know which one to come back with. So it may likely be incorrect. Okay, so let's sum up what we did with the radius searching. The first one that we did is we did 1 mile from, and we put in an MLS number. So 1002-39318. I see 3 options alphanumerically. So if it's not finding what I'm looking for, I may want to preface it by a different property type like rental. And then we have rental. So I'll actually see, I doubt I'll find anything rentals around there, but let's just say no, just because these are probably all high-end houses. And this time we'll just do 1 mile from. We'll do an MLS number, but this should give some results. What we're going to do is after we've typed in something, we're going to go to that edit search for 2 reasons. 1, check the map to make sure that it is in the correct location, but also put in my other search parameters. Now, the next one we're going to do is an address. So I could type in, say, 2 miles from 5400 Edisto Drive and click on it. Now, if it's not in the correct location, I may want to put in the Wilmington, NC, and then put in the zip code. But as someone mentioned before, they didn't think it was centered. This is why we're always checking the edit search to make sure that is correct. Not Google's, or sorry, it's not Flex Melissa's fault. It's getting sent to Google and they're returning results. So we'll just do Edisto Drive. Same one results, go to edit search. And there we go. So actually, I'm going to see if it's correct. So let's put in 54 Edisto Drive. This red push pin is really cool because it'll actually zoom into a address. Let me just verify. I can't even read my own writing, so I want to make sure I have the correct. Yep, 28403. So we locate. So if this red push pin zooms into the center of that circle, then I know it is correct. So I'm just going to zoom out. Okay, so yeah, it looks like it is more or less. Oh yeah, it is kind of a little off. But this red push pin that I see right here, pay close attention to this. When we're doing a radius search, 1 mile is my minimum up in the quick launch bar. But if I want to get a really specific radius, like 1/4 of a mile or 1/2 a mile, I can use the red push pin. So let me actually do that again. I'm going to get rid of this circle. And I'm going to do the push pin one more time, just so we see how that works. The red push pin will zoom into a specific address, anything that Google can find. It doesn't have to be if there's a listing there. Again, any address that Google can find. We're going to click on the red push pin, put in 5400 Disto Drive, Wilmington, NC 28403. Click on locate. Now, when it zooms into that address, you're going to click on use this location. Radius search right here. And then it gives you a radius search that says 1.0 miles from here. Well, you would not know unless you've taken the notes from this class that you can actually go less than a mile. So if I were to do a quarter of a mile, let's say this is a really ritzy area and 1 mile is covering multiple subdivisions and there's different prices involved. If I want to be very specific and do just a quarter mile radius, I can create the radius. And now there we go. Let me zoom out just a little bit. This is now a quarter mile radius around that address. And then, I can put in my other search parameters, whatever it is that I want to do. Okay, so we did an MLS number, we did a radius search, and then the final thing that we did is I'm actually gonna use this right here, College Park Elementary School. So we'll do 1 mile from, let's imagine our client is the new principal at the elementary school. Now, if I do College Park Elementary School, there's likely going to be another College Park Elementary School somewhere in the US. So I want to plug in the city, Wilmington, NC, so it knows exactly where it's located. We'll do 1 mile from. Remember, check the map. Anytime you do radius, check the map. So we see 18 results. Everything says Wilmington, so it's probably correct. But we want to check the edit search so we can see, hey, is that a 1 mile radius around? Yep, there we go. It's right there. That is a 1 mile radius around the elementary school. So I could put in my other search parameters, and then I have listings to send my client who is the new principal at the elementary school and wants to live within say 1 mile or 2 miles or whatever. He's a big biker, so he wants to bike when it is nice out. So that is the radius searching. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. So first 3 things we did in the quick launch bar. Number 1 was an MLS number. Number 2 was a address. Number 3 is a radius. And then number 4 is a name. So what do I mean by name? Well, if I type in Luke, this can be a name of something in the system. So if I type in Luke, I see a saved search for Luke Skywalker, 3 to 4 Bed Jacksonville. I also see a CMA called Luke Skywalker, 2006 Bridgewood. So I've been teaching in North Carolina on and off for the last probably like 6 months. And so we're going to see some examples from things I had before. I also have a contact by the name of Luke Skywalker. And then finally, we also see some members. Now, I told you before, whenever you see results come back, 5 is going to be the maximum. So I typed in Luke and I see 5 Lukes here. That doesn't mean there's just 5 Lukes on the board. There could be 15 or 20. So if you need to pull up a certain member, like maybe Luke Stavish didn't come up in my search. If I were just to type in his last name, I see Luke Stavish, pull him up. See his information and then his phone and any of his like license information. If I want to see if he has any listings, I can click on that right there. So he has 9 listings up in Greenville. So again, it's a name of anything. So if I type in Luke again, I see options like save searches. So this will pull up things like save searches. This will pull up CMAs. This will pull up listing collections. This will pull up anything that has that name in the system. And one thing I like is, remember we did a, it's like an Emerald Isle search, a favorite search. I can always pull up my favorite searches. Spell that wrong. Huh, it's not coming. Let's try. Kyle. Your name should. It doesn't work for that. I'll have to talk to FlexMus to see what's up with that. Might be because there's just too many things named that, but you can pull up favorite searches up here as well. Okay, so number 4 was a name. So I find most people will use this to pull up a search or pull up a like a listing collection or something. But also you can pull up members. So if you wanted to say find a Nancy, you either use a first name, or if there's too many of them, let's try Honeycutt. See her information, and if I wanted to view her listings, I could do so. Okay, so that was a name. Now, number 5, we're going to get really fancy, and just to show you how this works, I want you to write down these specific examples here. And so what I mean by that is we're gonna start really easy. We're gonna do land. Now you'll notice that I'm doing commas. The reason I'm doing commas is the comma lets FlexMus know that it's looking for a different type of parameter, different type of syntax. So I started with land, and then I'm gonna do 200-300K. And so it says land 200 to 300K listing price. So the K stands for thousands. Now, the reason I ask you to write down these specific examples is normally when I would teach this class in person around the country, I'd always have someone just type in land 200 to 300, and they'll click on land. And they'll get all these results, say like, wait, I'm seeing stuff that's 400,000. Why am I seeing that? Well, the number itself isn't specific enough for FlexMLS because, again, it's searching the entire database. It's trying to figure out, it's trying to please you, basically. It's trying to think, hey, is this what you're looking for, or is that what you're looking for? But if you do a K, it knows specifically, okay, I know you're looking for a listing price. You specified the property type, and then you specified the price. And so I'm going to click on this right here. So now I'm just going to get land listings between 200 and 300,000. And whenever I do a search, when we're doing radiuses, I check the map. But whenever I do a search with actual parameters, I click on edit search and make sure that it's correct. So that is correct. So we have land listings between 200 and 300,000. And I mean, if I wanted to get a little more specific, I could type in city of Jacksonville. So land 200 to 300,000, city of Jacksonville. Now, before I click on this, I do want to point out the easiest way for you to do this without making mistakes is watch the drop down while you're typing. So I type in land. Okay, it says land, comma space, 200 to 300K. Now it's really narrowed it down. So it knows, because if you type in something incorrectly, it'll let you know. It doesn't know what to do with 200 to 300. K stands for 1,000, so it knows. And then if I type in city of Jacksonville, it says city of Jacksonville. But if I were to type city wrong, which I frequently type things wrong, it actually, it does work here. But a lot of times, if it's not returning in the output what you're asking it, it's because you've typed something incorrect. And we're going to get fancier with like long strings of words here. So I always read the output while I'm typing to make sure it knows what I'm looking for. Because when I teach this in class, everyone will have the laptop up. And if someone will raise their hand and then say, hey, I got different results, it's because they have a typo. So we're going to do city of Jacksonville. So let's see. We have 518 results for land between 200 and 300,000. Let's see for Jacksonville, we now have 7 results. And I always check the edit search tab to make sure that it is correct what I am looking for. Okay, so that is one example. Now let's get a little fancier. So I'm gonna do a status this time, but I'm gonna do closed within last. Now, for those of you taking notes at home, make sure you write this down exactly, closed within last. Because what I can do is I can do closed within the last 7 days. And you'll notice it gives me a status change date range, so I know it's correct. So last 7 days, last 3 months, I see the last 3 months, or I see the last 2 years. Now, the reason I want you to write down close within last specifically is if you're using proper English, you would say close within the last 7 days. Look what happens in your output. It says Shangri-La. It doesn't know that the screws it up. So it is looking for specific words in a specific order. So if you were to use proper English, it's not going to actually work. But if you're reading your output and you see that it's not matching what you're looking for, then you remember, oh, it has to be closed within the last 3 months. And then I see that range, that date range, and then status of closed. And then I'm gonna do a comma and a space. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in a price range, but we'll get fancy. We're gonna do 1-1.5 M. So notice it has no idea what I'm asking it yet. But if I plug in that M, it suddenly knows, oh, millions. So we want to see close within the last 3 months, 1 to 1.5 million. And we'll actually do City of Emerald Isle. So Emerald Isle is a ritzy place. So I should be able to find stuff within the last 3 months. So I'm going to click on this. And we see 8 results. Like I said before, we're always going to check the edit search section right here at the tab to verify that this is correct. Now, I read the output so I know it's correct, but I always like to double check just to make sure, because the great thing about the quick launch bar is it is a quick way to do stuff. And so what will happen is people will get used to doing things quickly and then firing off some listings for a client and then actually being incorrect because they just didn't take the extra couple of seconds to verify that this is exactly what they're looking for. So let's say you have a client that says, hey, we're looking to spend between 1 and 1.5 million. We know the market's kind of crazy right now, so we want to see just in the last few months, what is 1 to 1.5 million getting you in Emerald Isle? So we'll do that one more time. So again, closed within last, not closed within the last, closed within the last 3 months, or maybe this time we'll do 6 months. But I could do 7 days, 6 months, 3 years, whatever it is that I want to do. 1-1.5. It's not doing anything yet because I have not put in that M. It signals to FlexMLS this is a price range. And then City of Emerald Isle. So I'm watching that drop down for the actual text I'm putting in and making sure it matches. And then clicking on it. And then once I've done that, I always switch to the edit search. It just takes me a couple extra seconds to verify, hey, yep. So that is exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get really fancy. Hold on, I do have a question. Okay, Shanna asked, can you do this for specific subdivisions? You can type in a sub of for a subdivision. Now, something like subdivision, if there's multiple units, you would physically have to do like every single unit if they're named differently. Like if you have stateside unit 1, stateside unit 2. Now, I don't know how common that is in North Carolina, but in Prescott, where I was in Arizona, there was like 20 units for some subdivisions. It would not be an efficient use of time. So you would just want to come down to the subdivisions. But for like say sub of stateside, that does work. So if I type in sub of stateside, read your output to make sure it's matching it. If I do sub of stateside, it will work. So let's do closed within last 3 months, sub of stateside. Let's see what's closed within the last 3 months in the sub of stateside. And especially with subdivisions, I can't emphasize enough. Double check your work. Make sure it is correct. So we see subdivision of stateside, we see status of closed, and then we see for the last 3 months. So this is a quick, easy, awesome way to do a lot of stuff in this system. But when you're doing quick stuff, if you're not really paying close attention, you might enter in something incorrectly. And then you're having incorrect listings come back in your results. Excellent question, by the way. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to get fancy. We're going to type in active, do comma, space. Again, I'm using the comma to break down the different type of syntax. especially when you start to do a lot of numbers, FlexMLS might get confused what you're asking it. So if you're going to do a comma and a space, it tells it, okay, we're moving on to something different. So then I'm going to do 250 to 300K, comma and space, and we're reading our output, 3 to 4 bed. And so we see 3 to 4 bedrooms, 250 to 300,000 active. Do another comma and space. We're going to do 1500 hyphen 2000. Oh, actually, I missed something real quickly. We're going to do baths. So I'm going to type in 2 bath. Now, you'll notice I typed in 3 to 4 bed right here, and then just did 2 bath. So it says 3 to 4 bedrooms is a range. But if I don't put in a range, I just put in one number, that is like the minimum. So it says 2 plus number of baths total. Because again, if it has to be 2 total baths, then it says 2 total baths. But I find most people like extra bathrooms. So if I just do 2 bath, so you're reading your output. And then let me do the square footage. So we're going to do comma space 1500 2000 SQFT. So that gives us the heated square footage. Now there may be other square foot fields, but this syntax up here, the stuff that you type into the quick launch bar, this works across all 150 plus of FlexMLS's customers. And so these are going to be fields that are in common. So it's always going to be things like price, status, property type, square footage. If you were to type in something like wine cooler, that might work for you. But I was teaching in St. George last month. They cracked up because Utah is a Mormon state, and it's the idea of having a wine cooler as a searchable field that's not very common. So it's just going to be the most basic fields that you can search on. Hold on, there's a question. Irina asks, is there a blank before square footage? Yes, I have a space before the number and square footage. And that's the thing is if you're not sure if it's correct or not. So it does work without the space, but I like to just keep it nice and tidy. But if you're reading that output, you'll see if it doesn't, when you type in something, the output doesn't change for the new thing, then you know it's not matching something, so it's getting confused. Okay, those prices don't have spaces. That's because I have a hyphen in between them. And so I have a hyphen between the numbers, but you don't want to have a K in between that, because then it may not know what you're asking it. Now let's see, does it actually work? It still does work. It's the rules here are very loose, but when I teach this, I like to be very specific in my examples. So people write down those specific examples, because I've taught this so many times, and people will try to get a little fancy, and then they get frustrated in class because it doesn't come back with the results they want, because they tweak something slightly different. Now it's pretty forgiving. Like if you do, instead of beds, you do BD, it should recognize it. Or you actually type out bedrooms. But I like a specific set of examples that everyone can understand. So, and let me go back. So after square footage, I'm gonna do another comma and a space. Now, for those of you taking notes at home, what I want you to do is I want you to write down the word location. Write down the word location. Now, the reason we're writing down the word location is you're not actually going to type in location. That means nothing to the system. But I want you to think of the word location and underline the word location, because our examples of locations are the things that we've done before. I could do city of Jacksonville. And if I have all these search parameters, I hope I'll get results, but I know price ranges are different across the US. Okay, so don't happen to get any results there, but I could do city of Jacksonville. Or I could do sub of, and put a subdivision like sub of stateside. Or zip codes. I could do multiple zip codes, or even just one. If I were to type in 28403, I could see the zip code of this. So the location options are going to be city of, county of, sub for subdivision, zip codes. Now you could type in zip of and a zip code, but there should be nothing else that's 5 digits, so it's not going to get confused. But then also remember our radius searching. Radius is a location. So if I were to type in 1 mile from and put in that MLS number, I could have all these search parameters in that MLS number with a radius around it. So just to show you how fast this is, you know, you could be on the phone, someone calls you up and says, hey, this is what we're looking for. And I'm just gonna do this really fast. I'm a horrible typer though, so it's not as impressive. So you plug in some search parameters, and this time I'm not going to do a city of just because I didn't get results, but let's just click on that. That literally took me 15 seconds, if not less. I have some results, and then I could go to email or save or whatever it is that I want to do. Okay, so we have, looks like we have in Wilmington. So I'll do the city of Wilmington this time. City of Wilmington. I teach at multiple locations in North Carolina, so my notes sometimes are for a different city. So what might work in Tarboro or something is not going to work necessarily in Jacksonville. So now we see 8 results, and I always check the edit search to make sure it has everything correct. Okay, Valor says you don't have to type city of. Yes and no. For Wilmington, it should work. Watch what happens. We're going to do Wilmington. It works. I'm reading that. But the problem happens is when you have a city that has 2 words in it. If we type in Emerald Isle, look what happens. It says City of Emerald Isle, subdivision of Island View. It thinks that these are 2 separate things. It's 2 different words. So, these are all different things. So it thinks, oh, it's trying to please you, but by doing that, sometimes it comes back with incorrect information. So Wilmington will work. Jacksonville will probably work. Let me just verify. Okay, Jacksonville does work. But if you're going to have something that has multiple words in it, you're going to want to specify city of, Emerald Isle. So excellent question. I don't usually do it without the city just because a lot of people get confused and then they wonder, wow, why it's not working. So we do all this, but just to show you how easy this works out. Okay, and what's cool about this is open it up in a new tab. You're working on something. A client calls you up and says, hey, this is what we're looking for. Open it up into a new tab so you don't lose what you're looking for, or don't lose what you're working on, and then you have a new tab with all of those search parameters. Now, obviously, for Emerald Isle, I'm not going to find something between 200 and 250, but you should realize how this works. Okay, so we're going to take another 10-minute break, and then the third hour we'll do basically be focusing on different ways to search regarding dealing with an actual client. So I want to mute myself, go pet the dogs again, and I will see you at 12 o'clock. Okay, so to sum up what we've been doing, the first hour we covered customizing the dashboard, and then the second hour we did searching from the quick launch bar. So we're going to continue with that a little bit, and then we're going to do an actual search from scratch for a client. So a few other things I want to point out in the quick launch bar is we can do address searching. Now, I showed you before, we typed in 5400 Edisto, which is great and wonderful if we have an actual address. But let's say someone calls you up and says, hey, I'm interested in that blue house in Jacksonville. And I know you get calls like that. So we can't type in blue house in Jacksonville, but what you can do is type in the word address, because there's something called an address search. Now, if I click on address search, it gives me some options like house number. So you can ask the person, do you happen to know where it's located? And they say, I think it's on the 200 block. So do 200 to 299. And they say it's on Oak something. Well, street name defaults to contains, and we see that down arrow or chevron. Like I said before, that means there's a drop down. So if you were to type in Oak, what it will do is it will show you everything between 200 and 299 on an Oak Street. So it could be Smiling Oak, Oak Leaf, Oakwood, whatever. And then you're going to keep going down, and don't forget the show more option right here. So when I go to show more, I have the option to go to status, and maybe I just want to see stuff that's active and like say pending. So what happened is they were driving by, they saw a property with a sign on it, and they really liked it, but they don't really know how to find it. So what you could do is, again, put in a house numbers, street name, do your actives, and click on search. And then you could look through the results. And if you happen to see a blue house, send it to them and say, hey, is this the one that you're looking for? And ideally they say yes. Now, another way that you can use this is if you are looking for specific units in a complex, let's say like a condo complex. Now, I used to live in a place called 55 Sea Park when I lived in Florida. 55 Sea Park. And so let's say you have a client who wants to list their property, list their condo unit, and you want to see all the condo units that have closed in, say, like the last year in that building. Or maybe, there's 3 different buildings, 55, 57, and 59. So you want to do a range. But you go down and so for status this time, instead of choosing active statuses, I'm going to choose the closed status. And I'm going to put a date range of, say, like the last 6 months or the last year. Let's just do 7/1/2020. And so what this will do is this will show me all the units that have closed and they're like, say, the last 6 months and whatever parameters I put in. So I put in a range, or again, if maybe it was just one building and there was like 40 units in one building, and then you put a street name. So the address search is great if you need to do a bit of detective work. So, I mean, if you have an actual address, 5400 Edisto, that works well. But if you need to do some detective work, the address search really is the way to go. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is, if you remember in the first hour, I told you people would ask me, can I do multiple MLS numbers here? And you can't type in multiple MLS numbers here, but what you can do is type in the word MLS, because there is an MLS number search which will allow you to do this. So I'm going to do MLS number search. And then this is where I plug in multiple MLS numbers. So I'm going to do 1002 39318, 1002 39317, 1002 39316. So I'm purposely using numbers that are next to each other because I want to show you a really cool option. I'm hoping that these listings are spread out across North Carolina regional. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in some MLS numbers, click on search. So we got Surf City, Greenville, and Ocean Isle Beach. Excellent. So I want you to pay close attention to what I'm going to do. And don't worry about like the prices and stuff. I want you to realize this isn't something that you can do. Whenever you do a search, now it can be MLS numbers, it could be addresses, it could be just a regular search. Whenever you do a search, you have an option to select listings. So when I select listings, what I can do is I can switch to the map tab right here. And I have the option to do driving directions. And I specifically wanted listings that were spread out for driving direction purposes. Now, this only works if you select listings. So when I click on driving directions, I see selected 3. Well, look what happens if I haven't selected anything. I just go to driving directions. It says current listing, so just one listing. Now I want 3 different properties. So I'm going to go with my client to these 3 different properties. Let's imagine that they're all active. So I select 3 or 4 or whatever I want to do. I go to driving directions. I see the select 3 listings, and then I view in Google Maps. So what's going to happen is these listings are going to get sent to Google. Give it a second to load. So I see the 3, and so I see the directions. Now, the first thing that I notice, it says send directions to your phone. If you're logged into a Google account and you see that I am right here, and I click on send directions to your phone, you can, send it to your phone or either with your email or actually text it to yourself. So, you could text it yourself or you could email it to your client. Let's say your client is following in a separate vehicle. But what's cool about this is these are in the order that you send them. But if you need to change the order, watch your mouse behavior. Now you're actually in Google, so it works a little differently now. But I get that hand, I can hold my left mouse button and change it around. But what I like to do is I like to add a destination, really. But what the destination is it's my starting location. So I'm going to click on the plus sign and I'm going to type in Jacksonville Board of Realtors. But this would be, your office or your home. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this up to the top. So that is my starting location. And then, whatever order you want, whatever makes most sense, north to south, east to west. But now you are able to send directions to your phone with the, addresses for all the properties that you're going to take a look at. And also you can send them to your client. So that is a really cool option. So let's just do that one more time. Now I'm using the MLS number search, but this can work for any listings that you've selected. Just go to the map tab and then go to your driving directions. So we're gonna do that one more time.
Excuse me, I have a question. Is it
Yep.
okay? I'm sorry, too much to type. So let's say, for example, you have 5 showings. And we can do this in showing time, but I'm just curious to know if we can do it in Flex MLS as well. And if it comes out a little bit better. So we've chosen 5 properties.
Yep.
And is it the same as just because you have multiple listing up there? Maybe I'm confused.
Showing time, I believe showing time allows you to do it where it's more kind of like a more efficient way to do it.
Okay.
Showing time may work better. For this, it just sends the listing based on the order you send them to Google, and then you can rearrange, but it's not going to know like what is the most efficient route.
Gotcha. Okay. But if to put all of them in there, I have to do that multiple listing and then add in all of their, I guess you're going to go over that again.
What you're talking about is if you select listings, you go up to the 3 dots. There is a showing cart option that allows you to schedule multiple listings at the same time.
Ah,
So yeah, you just don't schedule. If you do the 3 or 4 or 5, go to showing cart, all of these will get sent to showing time at the same time. So you can schedule them all at once. But this
Okay.
is more for just like if you want to get driving directions. This doesn't schedule showings. This
okay.
is-
I know. That's not really what I'm asking. I was just asking like for directions and like how long it would take. Like, so this would give me a very good preview of how long it's going to take me to do all those showings.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to do an actual search from scratch. So I showed you a bunch of different searching from the quick launch bar, but a lot of people just like to start with a quick search. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the quick search and some things that you may not be aware that are there. Then we're going to talk about, searches, subscriptions, the portal. We're going to build into the 201 class. So the 201 class next Wednesday at 10 o'clock will literally just pick up right where this class left off. So I'm going to give you some stuff to think about, and then we'll start over in next Wednesday with some more information. So I'm going to do a quick search. And so this is where I'm actually going to plug in some listing information to find some for my clients. So let's put a price. We'll do 300 to 350. And then, okay, I'll do a subtype. And then I'm going to do subtype of single family resident. Now, pay close attention to what I'm going to do next. Now, this is one of those things I keep emphasizing. Watch your mouse behavior, watch your hover text, especially when we're dealing with searching, because there's so much functionality that you're going to miss if you don't pay attention to what your mouse does. Now, when my mouse goes over of, look what it does. It says click to change, include, exclude. I can change this to not of. Now, not wanting single family doesn't make sense, but maybe they're okay with a condo, single family, or a townhouse, but they don't want a manufactured home. So the not of these, a lot of this blue hyperlink text, it's, again, watch your mouse behavior. You see that the index finger. So you know you can do something with it. So just be very aware when you're working on the left side that your mouse is able to do a lot of things. So we're gonna go back to single family residence. Now that being said, watch what happens when I play around with status. So I click on status. I see active and pending with showings are both selected. Now, remember when we see a list like this, the blue things are the ones that are selected. If I want to change that, hold down Control, or if I have a Mac, Command, and then you can select multiple things. And you'll notice whenever I choose an off-market date, I suddenly get this range of dates. So I'm just going to switch it to close really quickly to show you how this works. And so we see a sold date and it says 366 days back. So you'll notice these ones are set up differently than this, and you're wondering why. Well, I've taught this class before, and so I've changed it. But this is one of those things you would have no idea this is an option unless you watch your hover text. So my cursor, the arrow suddenly becomes a finger, so I know I can click on it, but it says change date type. So what FlexMLS does is it gives you two options. It gives you an absolute date range. So if I were to change this to 1/1/2021, it'll show me everything that's sold in, like say, the last 12 days. And it'll go 10 years into the future, basically meaning if you save this search, it's going to work for the next 10 years. So when you have that really picky client. Now, the other thing I can do is I can switch it to a relative date range. So if I click on these two black arrows, it'll toggle to a relative date range. And I could do, like, say, 30 days back. And whenever we see this blue underlined text, it tells me this is something I can click on. 30 days back, 30 months back, or 30 years. Now, I don't think you have 30 years of data, but there is quite a bit of data. And if you click on years again, it'll switch it back to days. So I just want you to be aware that really pay attention to what your mouse behavior is doing, because there's so much functionality here, either on this screen, but then also all this stuff. If you hover over something, it may tell you something that is important to you. So we're just going to keep it with active again, and we'll do pending with showing. So I'm going to hold on Shift, or no, sorry, Shift selects all of them in between. I'm going to hold on Control, and we'll just hide the date ranges and keep going down. So let's just put in, we'll do 3 to 4 beds. And mass, we're going to do 2 minimum. And then we'll do, let's see, square footage. I'm just going to do 1,500, 2,000, down to 82. So we will cover this next week in the 201 class. We're going to be customizing this, but I just want you to be aware. This 1-residential, this is the default template that is provided for you. But if you want to remove some fields and you want to add some fields, you can save your own template. So those fields are always available to you. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to add a field to the search, click inside this box, and all the fields that I could possibly search on. So whenever someone enters in a listing, they check boxes or they fill out information. What I can do is I can click on this and start scrolling down. Or if I know what I'm looking for, I can just start typing in the information. So let's say I want to type in dryer. Well, when I type in dryer, I see it comes up in 2 locations, but I see appliances and equip. Well, if I just click on dryer, it just adds dryer over. But what might make more sense is actually to add the entire group over. And this is one of those things that, watch your hover text. I hover over appliances equip. It says click to add all fields in this group. So if I click on this, it adds all of them over. Now, how these things work when you're clicking boxes, these are operators, or, not, or, and. So look what happens when I check the box for dryer. I now have 18 results. So what this means is this is only going to come back with results that just have a dryer. Well, look what happens when I check it next to washer. 18 should jump up to 20. Not many, but the reason it does that is because I'm using these or operators, it's telling the system it can have a dryer or a washer, which doesn't really make sense here. It would make a lot more sense if it could have a electric stove or a gas stove. So we have 45, and then we have 58. So either of them are fine. And like maybe, cooktop electric. So again, any type of stove really is fine for this search. So those are or. Well, what I want to do is when I check for dryer, if I do dryer and washer, the or doesn't make sense. I want to have both of them. So if I click on this again, see, read your hover text, click to change and or not. It has to have a dryer and a washer. So now we're back down to 18 results. But it cannot have a dishwasher. Let's say someone really likes to do dishes by hand. And so that 18 drops down to 2. They want to use extra space. Why? I don't know. But so it has to have a dryer and a washer, but it cannot have a dishwasher. So that's how these operators work, or not an and. So I want to make sure that you're aware of how this works. Okay, so I'm gonna check this. I'm gonna keep my numbers high. So we're up to 82. I don't have really, here, let me change my price because clearly I'm not capturing Jacksonville. Let me just try 200 to 300,000. Let's see if we have. There we go, much more results. Okay, the reason I want more results in the Jacksonville area is because if I scroll down, I will see that I have a city option, a marking city, zip code, subdivision. I can narrow them down that way. Or what I can do is I can draw a map shape. And I really want to show you how to draw a map shape. So what I'm going to do is here's my Jacksonville. I'm going to double click, or I can use my scroll wheel. And so we're going to use these map shapes on this screen, and I'll show you how this works. Okay, so the first shape right here, this is a rectangle. And if you click on the rectangle, it's very simple. You click on it so it's focused on that. Click once on the map, and that'll start it. And if you start moving your mouse, and then when you stop moving your mouse, then you click again. So one click to start, one click to finish. And then now that 477 will narrow down to 11 results. And it always zooms into your shape. It kind of tries to center it. So if you just want to zoom back out again. So I'm going to scroll up on the left side. I see, okay, this is the rectangle and there's everything in the shape. Now, let's imagine that this is the husband search, but the wife, she works right here and she wants to live within a certain distance. Now, we did this really briefly earlier on in class, but this circle is a radius. And remember when we were doing the Camp Lejeune, when we did a radius, it's so large that the radius, it centers it in the center of the location. It's so large that it actually can't, find any houses that are listed. So this circle is probably a better way. So we'll find a center point. Let's say she works right here. Click on the center point, and then you watch it go out and look at the distance. And so we're gonna go out, say like 3 miles. And we see it says 3.01, so that's close enough. So we now have 2 shapes. We have the rectangle, and then we have the circle. So we're now up to 14 results. And if you hover over them, you see which one is which. If you're doing multiple shapes, and you can click on the X. It's this little X right to the left of it if you need to get rid of that shape. But what's a really cool option when you're drawing shapes is the things you can do with them. Now, watch your hover text. Cannot emphasize this enough. Watch your mouse behavior. I would have no idea that if I hovered over within, until I hovered over, that says all shape locations are included. Click to intersect. So I changed this to intersection. So now it's gonna zoom in, like I said before, it zooms in to what it tries to focus on whatever you're looking at. But I'll zoom back out. So right now it's going to show us the 1 or 2 or 3 properties that are in the intersection, like a Venn diagram in between these 2 shapes. Now, another thing I can do is if I watch that hover text again, intersection, it says all shape locations must be matched, meaning intersecting, click to exclude. So if I click to exclude, it's going to show me all the listings that are outside this 1 or 2 or 3 shapes. So what's really cool about doing the not within is a lot of times, you have a lot of good search parameters here on the left side, but there might not be something specifically that you're looking for that you can just click on. So what I mean is, now this is completely hypothetical. Let's imagine that the subdivision of Stateside. Now that's a subdivision that's in the Jacksonville area. let's imagine that the subdivision actually encompasses 3 different phases. And you know, having worked there a lot, that the first phase and the second phase are really high quality craftsmanship. But the third phase was a new builder and it's not very good. So when you're doing a search for your clients, you want to include just phase 1 and phase 2. Again, completely hypothetical. But so what you can do is you can zoom in, if you know where it's located, draw a map shape around the first and second phase, but exclude the third phase, and then just save it so you can use it in the future. And you could also do the within or not within. So drawing shapes specifically based on what you're looking for is really cool. Now, what I mean by that is, well, we have stuff that could be east of 17 or waterfront properties. You have a lot of good search parameters, but something that says east of 17, I don't think there's going to be a search parameter for that. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to draw some specific shapes that we can save. So I'm going to get rid of these 2 shapes. Let this load up again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a shape over here. And so I really like to zoom in. Now, the final shape that I'm going to do is this freeform polygon. And for the freeform polygon, what I like to do is switch to the satellite view, just because, especially like with all the marshes and the geographic there, you may not even have houses in a certain location. So I'm going to click the satellite and take a look at what it looks like. And so for this, I see kind of like it looks like a road here. Now the shape that I'm going to draw is going to be completely arbitrary, but I just want to show you how this works. So I'm going to click on the freeform polygon right here. And then every time I click, it gives me a point. So actually, let's go along 172. So you can take your time. Now I'm going to go pretty fast just because for the class purposes, but you can be as exact as you'd like. And I'm just going to include everything south of like this little river thingy. And so what you're going to do is when you're done, stop moving your mouse. People will call FlexMOS support, say, well, why is it following me? Stop moving your mouse. And I mean, literally stop it, no movement, because if you have even move it just slightly and you click, again, it'll give you another point. So stop moving your mouse and then double click and make sure your mouse is not moving. So when I double click, it'll actually finish this shape. And you'll see on the left side, it says polygon, and like anytime you draw a shape, it zooms into it. So we have a polygon. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this shape and so I can use it in the future. But before I save the shape, I want you to think about, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? Now, let's say that, you know, completely hypothetical, this is a hot new area. There's dog parks, there's breweries, and, you know, a lot of younger people are looking to buy in this area. And so I believe that I've already named something called hotspots. Okay. So I have a place called hotspots where, you know, hypothetically, there's different neighborhoods where, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on and people want to live in those neighborhoods. And so I've been drawing these shapes throughout the last few months. Again, completely arbitrary, completely hypothetical. But if you're doing this, you can actually have it make sense. So east of 17, gated communities, waterfront communities, near the national forest. I mean, I was looking for stuff in Croatan last time I was there. I know when I taught in Pinehurst, they have all those golf courses. So people were interested in drawing map shapes, you know, for the different holes on the different golf courses and then saving them. So before you actually save this shape, I want you to think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. So I have a map overlay called hotspots, or, you know, my favorite neighborhoods, gated communities. So the name of the overlay is one thing, but then you're going to have the names of the individual shapes. So I'm just going to call this one primary nursery areas. Now I have no idea what this area is called, but just so we have something to work with. But, you know, I could draw one here and I could draw one here and one here. You know, the sky's the limit on this. Just basically draw shapes that make sense to you and where you don't have a field on the left side that corresponds to what you're trying to accomplish. Now, prior to COVID, I used to use Airbnb locations where people, you know, they called it Airbnb locations. And then they would search for areas around a couple different cities where clients could buy up properties to make Airbnbs. Now with COVID, things are changing. So I don't know how well that's working right now, but just again, think of what is the theme? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? So I'm using the hotspots, again, completely hypothetical. It's, younger people, breweries, dog parks, something like that. So I'm going to save this now. So it's very simple to save it. I'm going to click on the polygon right here. Click on edit. And we're going to call this one primary nursery area. Areas. I'm going to give it a color because, you can have whatever color you want. And then I'm going to save it to a map overlay. Now it says new overlay or add to existing. I always switch to add to existing to see if I already had that theme that I wanted. Now, so I had one called rental incomes, my neighborhoods, and hotspots. So I'm just going to add it to the hotspots one and click on save. Now I have a map shape that I can use anytime in the future. And so I'm actually going to remove this by clicking on the X. It says remove this location. And if I want to pull it up, it's right here where it says MLS number, address, or map overlay. If I click inside this box, I see all the map shapes that I've drawn. Now, if I've drawn a lot of shapes and I can't find it, then what I can do is just start typing in primary nursery areas. It finds it, double click. Now that shape comes back. So what's cool about these map shapes is you can use them for custom hot sheets. Remember our stats dashboard? I talked about that in the first hour. You could pull up the absorption rate for whatever is in that shape. You can use them for, searches, market summary report, which we will be doing in the 301 class in a couple of weeks. So, but really the focus here I want you to see is you have a lot of good fields on the left side, but sometimes you just can't quite find what you're looking for. So draw a shape for what you're looking for. Think of it thematically. What is it? Is it a hotspot? Is it an Airbnb location? Is it gated communities? And then you can have as many map shapes as you'd like. And if you ever want to pull them up, they're going to be right here. Okay, so we're going to look at some results for these actual listings, and then we're going to save the search, set up subscription, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go to the list tab right here. And so I see my 7 results. Now there's 2 ways to look at it. I see the view to normal or the one line. There we go. And the fields that are available here, this is what's called a view. This is one of the things that we're going to customize in next week's class. We're going to create our own view, meaning we're going to decide what fields are available on the screen so we can customize it however we want to have it. And then we're going to go to the detail tab. So the detail tab will have things like history. So we have CRS, it looks like that's CRS data, CMA report, demographics report, property report. If there's any documents on the listing, you'll see the documents. Now, private documents means they don't get sent out in emails. That's meant just for realtors, where public documents do. Go to more, and we see all of your other third-party integrations if you want to use them. Like we talked about earlier in class, if you just click on here to schedule a showing, or if you go under more and you do showing time, that just schedules this one listing. But if you were to select multiple, you do have the option under the 3 dots to do showing cart. If you want to send 3 or 4 listings to showing time to schedule them all at once, that is an option. Go to the photos. Now this will load your photos, and the so we just go click on the arrows, or I can use the left or right on my keyboard to go to different photos. Up and down on my keyboard will go to the next listing. And then go to the map tab. Now, just like one thing I want to point on the map tab, this nosy neighbor is actually a pretty cool thing. Let me switch back to map just so I can see some parcel numbers. If you want to zoom way in to where you see actual boundaries, there we go, actual boundaries. This iNosy Neighbor can give you tax information for like a neighboring listing. And so you could do, if it's tax lookup, now it may never have been listed. Like this one has been listed, but if you do the tax lookup, this should pull up CRS. You get tax information for that. So that is how we do a basic quick search. Now we're actually going to do something with these results. So I kind of want to explain first, before we do anything, what we're trying to accomplish. Now, I look at when you're doing a search in FlexMLS and you're going to deal with a client, I think of it as like tiers of support. Now, tier 1 is a manual email. So what I mean by that is I go to email right here. I have 7 results. I go to email. I click on interactive version. Give it a second to load, fill out some information. Now, they may be a contact or they may not. Maybe I just plug in, I just met someone real briefly and I want to plug in their email address and email to them. So this is the tier 1 of support. Now, the problem with the tier 1 of support, the manual email, is you are doing all the work. And what I mean by that is I could either send the 1 listing or I'd probably want to do all results. I send these 7 listings to the potential client or client. And then in that, those based on those search parameters, something new pops up. There's a new listing. So it's now up to 8. Well, when I do a manual email, that 8th one, nothing happens to it because I'm having to do the work. So what you would be doing is you'd be doing the search over and over yourself to find new stuff, and then you would be manually emailing them. And across the country, when I teach, I've had a lot of people tell me, well, you know, I get up at 5 in the morning to do searching for my clients. And my response is, why? The system will do it for you. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to our search results, is if you save a search and set up a description, you're telling the system, hey, this is what my clients are looking for. I want you to search the system, and every time you see a price change, a status change, a new listing, I want you to fire that off to my clients. So that's the tier 2 of support, is the search and subscription. So tier 1 is the manual email. You are doing all the work. Tier 2, search and subscription. FlexMLS is doing the work. After you've set it up, FlexMLS does it. So we go to save search. And let's see, I'm actually gonna go to existing just so I see. Okay, who haven't wedge? I'm running out of Star Wars characters, so I'll just do R3D3. I'm just going to make one up because I forgot to clear up my context because I teach this so much. Okay, so I haven't watched any of the new Star Wars, so I don't actually know any of the new characters. So R3D3. Or actually, we'll do Emperor Palpatine. Comma, and then I'm going to put in, okay, so this was 200 to 300,000, and this was Hubert. Okay, so this was Hubert, or maybe I remember our shape was called primary areas or something, so I could do that instead. But in my search name, I like to be specific what it is, because a lot of times you might have 4 or 5 searches, and I've seen people put like Emperor Palpatine 1, Emperor Palpatine 2. Well, you don't actually know what it is unless you put in the search name. Now, search description. This is not a description of your client. When I was working at FlexMLS, someone had put not really worth it commission in this box. And then they called up the support team panicking because they did not realize that their client was actually able to see that. So I just like to give that warning when I teach this. Now for contact, I always like to go to existing to see if this person is there. Emperor Palpatine is not, so I'm going to type in Emperor Palpatine and put in a email. Now, before I continue, I do want to point out where it says create a portal account for this prospect. This is something that we're going to be covering in the 201 class next week. So a search and subscription is basically what it sounds like. You're saving a search, and then you're setting up an email, an auto email or a drip system where FlexMLS will email the client with new listings, price changes, status changes. That's really cool, but it is reactive. It's waiting for something to hit the market and then notifying the client. Now, FlexMLS is very fast. When there's a new listing, it takes about 10 minutes for that listing to get emailed to your clients. Now, the reason it even takes up to 10 minutes is because what frequently happens is people will make a listing live and then they have an oh crap moment and they forgot something. So then they make a change like the next minute or two. So FlexMLS gives you a little bit of leeway to make that change so it doesn't fire off 2 emails instead of 1. So that's why it takes up to 10 minutes. Whereas, price changes, status changes, it's usually about 2 to 5 minutes. So that's a really great thing about the search and subscription is, Zillow can't do that. Having been an MLS director, I would get calls every single day with my members saying, hey, I made this change in Zillow a couple days ago, or I made this change in FlexMLS a couple days ago. Zillow is not reflecting it. So I'd have to send an email to Zillow, a specific email I had just for like MLS staff, and they'd get around to fixing it usually in a day or 2. But that could be 3 or 4 days before it actually reflects in Zillow. Whereas in FlexMLS, those changes are almost instantaneously. Price changes sometimes only take a couple of minutes. But with that in mind, we see something that says create a portal account for this prospect. Now, this is the tier 3. Tier 3, the portal is a website your client can log into, tell you what they like, what they don't like. It's completely interactive, but it's proactive. A subscription is reactive. Something changes, something new comes, an email fires off. Whereas a portal is more like Zillow or Redfin or another site where they can log in and do their own searching. Now, the great thing about using a FlexMLS portal is once you set them up for an account, once they log in, the first thing that they see is your profile photo. And when they do the searching, the first option they see when they pull up a listing is actually contact agent, meaning you. So they're doing all their searching in the context of you. Whereas in other sites, they might do a search and then based on how much money that person pays that site to get them up at the top of the list, it's going to be another realtor. Whereas your FlexMLS portal is branded to you and they're doing all the searching in the context of your information. So a portal is proactive, meaning if I can't sleep and it's 1 a.m. and I want to do some searching, I can log into the portal and do my own searching. I don't have to wait for an email that says there's a price change or a status change. Now, with that being said, I highly recommend having both going. Have a search and subscription and a portal, because what it basically does is a subscription is a reminder to go back into the portal. And then once they have that cookie in their browser or on their phone, when they click on a subscription email, that will actually bring them into the portal because that cookie is there. So I like to do both of these. So I'm going to click on yes and then invite. And then next Wednesday, we'll actually go step by step what the portal looks like, how it works, that kind of thing. That's too much for the beginner class. I just want you to be aware in the context of searches and subscriptions. We're really talking about 3 different things. The tier 1 is the manual email. And 5 years ago, that used to be really, really common. But now with the portal, I find people don't even email listings necessarily anymore. They just invite the customer to the portal and let them play around in the portal. The reason being is people are going to do their own searching anyways. Research has shown people will search for listings weeks to months before they even reach out to a realtor. So an email may necessarily really accomplish much, where if you give them access to the portal, they can do their own searching. But then once they're in the portal, whenever they see a listing, they can't reach out to the other realtor. They can only reach out to you because it is your portal. So I'm going to click on Save and Add Subscription. And so you have some options now. If you want to send the new listings to you, because FlexMLS actually tracks a lot of this stuff now, I never want to see a subscription email copy. And I also don't want to see when they click the link, because this stuff will actually be tracked in an opt-in status report or in contact management. I'll finish this class with the opt-in status report, and then we'll be doing contact management in the 2nd hour of next week's class. But I want to go down. I do want to point out a few things. Now, schedule. Every day is checked by default, meaning once a day, every day, an email will go out to your client with the listings that meets their search parameters, assuming it's a really broad search. We right now only have 7 results. So maybe once or twice a week, we might have a status change or a price change or a new listing. They're not going to be receiving that email every day because there's not a change. Whereas if you got 40 results, there's probably going to be activity every single day. Now, monthly, pay close attention to this. Now, we're adding a subscription right now, but a lot of times what people do, and I'll actually pull this up into a new tab just to show you, you can't, don't want to lose what you're working on. I'm going to open this up into a new tab. If you want to access a subscription you've set up, you can do it this way by typing in subscriptions and going like say subscription Red Leader. Now, the reason I'm doing this is you'll notice this one says monthly. If this was set up for like weekly or ASAP, and then I want to come to monthly and save it, the reason I switched this to monthly is because I don't do monthly for new clients. But once someone has purchased something, a lot of times people will just delete the search and subscription. I tell them, no, don't do that. What you want to do is switch it to monthly and then change the text. But what you want to do is if they purchase something, let's say they purchased something in Hoover. So what you do is you update this text and say, hey, this is what's going on in your neighborhood. After people have purchased something, it's good to send them a monthly email. The main reason being is research has shown that something like 80% of people would recommend the realtor to a friend or family member, but something like only 20% remember their realtor's name. So if you're just emailing them once a month, tell them, hey, this is what's going on in your neighborhood. People like that. They like to see what's happening because, if they want to see their house, the prices are going up in their subdivision or whatever it is. So switching this to monthly, keep the subscription going, but just send it once a month. I really like that option. But for a new client, we're always going to do either weekly or ASAP. ASAP is what it sounds like. Now, if you set this up, your client's going to receive an email. New listings will be about 10 minutes. Price changes and status changes about 2 to 5 minutes. Now, something like this search where it's pretty narrow, I'm happy with ASAP. But if you have a first-time home buyer that's insisting at looking at everything in like Jacksonville and like 2 other cities, they might be getting 15, 20 emails a day, and they're more likely to opt out of that subscription. So ASAP, use that sparingly. It's a really cool option. Or let's say you have investors looking to buy up properties. You definitely want to use this because like Zillow or other sites, like I said, they could be hours or even days behind. You are the realtor. You have the primary source of data, which is the MLS. That is your competitive advantage. So using the ASAP is a really cool option. Now, the final thing I want to show you for the subscription is this for you will be blanked out. So what I do is I type in some information. I do high space, comma, and then I save a template. So I'm going to save a new template. We'll just call this one sub 3. Excuse me, sub 3. And so I see the different subscriptions. I can just switch to the one that I want. And then all I need to do is plug in the name of my client. So it saves me some time. And then I click on save. So when I do this, this sets up a search and subscription. And you'll see a green pop-up that says search and subscription saved. Would you like to email these listings now? The reason this pop-up comes up is a lot of people don't realize when you save a search and subscription, the original results do not go out. Because of how FlexMLS evolved, originally there was always the manual email. People would send a manual email first. Then they would set up a search and subscription. And the search and the subscription is like a magazine subscription. You don't get the current issue, you get future issues. So you don't get the current listings, you get future listings. But because of how the portal works, I find a lot of people no longer email listings. They just set up the portal and then all the listings will be there available. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the opt-in status report. So OPT, this is the opt-in status report. Now, this is something I tell everyone, make a reminder on your phone, Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. It only takes a couple of minutes. But the reason this is so important and so few people know what this is for is when you set up a search and subscription, you're basically asking FlexMLS, hey, do this work for me. You're having it send a search and subscription for your clients. So you want to verify that it's actually working. So if you're checking this just like say once a week, you go to pending, you see, okay, has anyone been pending? Well, the first thing that should jump out to you, notice how Mace, Red Leader, and Wedge have been pending for 83 and 86 days. Whenever I teach this class in person, I have everyone pull up the opt-in status report, and someone always raises their hand and says, hey, someone's been pending for 60 days. And I tell them what that means is in those 60 days, or in this case, 86 days, Mace has not received a single subscription email because he's still pending. When you send a subscription email, they have to physically do one of two things. They have to click on a manual email that will opt them in, or they have to click on the subscription email, which is this like blue button that says, yes, please send me listings. And we will cover that process in the next class to make sure we understand it. But the reason this is the way it is to get around spam. FlexMLS sends millions and millions of emails a day, and they spend a lot of money to ensure that those emails are delivered correctly. 99.9% or something is very high. But to do that, your clients have to opt in. You can't just send anyone up on a subscription these days on the internet if you want to ensure accurate delivery. So when you set up a subscription, they get an email that says, Chewy is trying to connect, and there's going to be a blue button that says, yes, please send me listings. This opts them in, and then they go then to the confirmed. So if you're checking this like once a week, you notice people have been pending for 6-7 days, resend the request or call them up. But clearly I haven't been checking. So I may think that Mace and Red and Wedge are getting emails, but they are not. They are still pending. So checking this once a week, again, only takes you a couple minutes. Now on deliverables, this would be if an email address doesn't exist. Well, we know that the Death Star blew up, so Stormtrooper no longer has an email address. Now confirmed. This is where you want to see everyone, is in the confirm section. And you'll see, now I said before, I don't like to track the copies. I don't need to receive an email if they're clicking on it, because I actually get to see the data right here. Once they've clicked on something, it'll actually show me a timestamp. Now opted out, just like any subscription on the internet, down at the bottom of the email, it's going to say to unsubscribe, please click here. To get emails delivered correctly, FlexMLS has to give them the option to opt out. And so if you're checking this once a week, you may notice that someone has opted out. Usually they opt out because you set them up with ASAP and they're receiving like 20 emails a day. Ideally, they just call you up and say, hey, I'm receiving too many emails. And then you switch them to the daily option, but they don't always do that. And then inactive, this is if they have not clicked a link for 13 months. Subscriptions are good for 13 months. If your client clicks on a subscription email, it extends it for another 13 months. So they literally only have to click on an email like once a year, and then they just will continue going on and on. But if you see someone is inactive, basically means they are probably not your client. So just to sum this up again, the OPT, the opt-in status report, write that down, make a reminder on your phone or an alarm or something, just check it once a week. Because when you're doing the subscription, you're no longer doing the work. FlexMLS is doing the work, but it can only work in the parameters of how subscriptions in the internet works. You can't just fire off emails to anyone these days, otherwise they end up in spam. So you check the opt-in status report to verify that it is FlexMLS is doing his job, but also your clients are doing their end. They're clicking on that subscription email, because if they're not, they are pending and they're not receiving the emails that you think are getting fired off to them. Okay, so that concludes the FlexMLS 101 class. Next Wednesday at 10, we will be doing the 201, which will cover contact management. It'll cover the portal. And then we're also going to cover on your quick search screen, we're going to cover customizing the left side so we can remove the fields we do not want, add the fields we do want, and then we're going to be customizing this list. So we have a residential list view, which is the default. But also, if I want to remove some fields and add some fields so they are available here, we will be doing that customization. Shannon says, is there a way to remove notes written in a search description? You could just pull up, go to save searches. If you pull up a search, and you go to save it. If it's existing, if there's any search description, you could just delete that and then save it again. And then that would remove those description notes. Okay, Heather, anything you want to say before I log off?
Thanks, guys, for being here. We hope to see you next Wednesday. If you have not registered for that, there's still time to do that. And then this will be saved on our Education Hub and hopefully up and going tomorrow morning at the latest. So thanks, guys, for being here.
So I hope you learned something. I know I throw a lot of information at you just because the system is so powerful, and this is recorded, and hopefully you were able to take some notes. But these classes are progressive. So we're going to build off this information and the next week continue. And then in the 301 class in 2 weeks, that's going to be CMAs and stats, which really are the hardest thing. So I want to thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys.